So I'm here today to talk a little bit about entrepreneurship. We have started a series on the blog about entrepreneurship as a workforce development strategy. And so today, I wanted to answer one of the questions that I get most often as an HR and talent management consultant, and that's how did you get started? Why did you do what you're doing, going out on your own? And I thought, what better place to do that than where some inspiration for the company name got started. So I am here on the Tennessee River at my family's place that's about 30-45 minutes away from my home. I have worked with a client on site about an hour from my home, hour and a half, and so I am here splitting the difference. And yes, I'm in river mode. My hair is up. My running clothes are on, but I do want to talk about business for a little bit and give you some ideas and insights for potentially going out on your own. So, inspiration for the company name came partly from this place. I spent some time along with my husband working with a marketing firm when we first got started to determine a company name and to develop some preliminary marketing materials. And so, in that great brainstorming session that we had with Ellen Didier of Red Sage Communications, we started throwing a whole bunch of words up on the wall that related to the business that we were starting and the mindset that we wanted to cultivate about innovation in the workplace and people being satisfied and fulfilled through their careers. And I said something, and I don't know what it was or remember what it was, but my husband said it's kind of like that feeling you get when you're at the river and the sun is setting over the river. And he was exactly right. The satisfaction that comes from positive work and valuable work and creating workplaces that help to create that for individuals is really what we were talking about. So, Horizon Point became that place that you want to get to as someone in your career or as a workplace wanting to get to the place and finding that optimal point on the horizon that leads to innovation, leads to creativity, and leads honestly to business productivity and profitability through human capital. So, the name of the company was born a little over 5 years ago, and we have slowly and steadily grown in those 5 years. And I wanted to share with you how we got here and maybe provide you with some advice that might help you. So, I'm going to talk about that journey, talk about some realizations that I had along the way that shaped the purpose of the business and the direction and meeting client needs, and also leave you with some questions that you might want to ask yourself if you're going out on your own to think about success that you may be able to create from the positive and negative successes and failures that I've seen in doing what we've been doing for the past 5 years. So, how we got here, my my undergraduate time was spent at the University of Alabama, Roll Tide, and I started there really without any clue of what I wanted to do. I had been fairly successful in high school and from an academic standpoint, and also I had the opportunity to dual enroll in courses. And so I was almost a sophomore when I started, which made it more of a challenge to go ahead and decide what I wanted to do. I started off in a liberal arts program and loved the classes and experiences that I had there, but didn't see where those were going to fit into career. So I bounced around from several things, all the way from nursing and pre-med to ended up taking a career assessment at the Career Center to try to help me figure out what I was doing and what college I needed to be in, much less what major, and realized then through that career assessment, which is actually the career assessment that we use to help people now, it's a strong interest inventory, that I needed to be in the business school. So switched there, and after getting involved in those classes, had no regrets. That business degree in general management led me to an opportunity in human resources right out of college with a large insurance company. Um, I had some great experiences there as a corporate recruiter and working on HR project management through a conversion in HRS systems and recruiting systems. Uh, but realized in hindsight, that big corporate environment, although a training ground and a learning ground that I would not change for anything, was not the right fit for me. Didn't realize that at the time, though. We actually, my husband and I, had the opportunity to move back to our hometown because of his career path. About 2 years into that career in HR, and I happened into a role in economic development. And with that opportunity, I really had the chance to learn so much about workforce development from the standpoint of businesses and how macro HR, as I call it, or workforce development, contributes to the overall success of organizations and economies or communities. Um, got some great experience training during that time, facilitating training, um, and had this epiphany a few years into that I loved part of what I did in economic development, loved part of what I did in HR and recruiting, and wanted a way to weld those worlds together. While all that was going on, I also had the realization that I didn't want my boss's job. If he were to leave or for whatever reason, I didn't want to be doing what he did day in and day out. He was great at it. I didn't want to pursue that even if he wasn't leaving anytime soon to pursue it with another economic development entity. So with that being said, um, I began to think about what it was that I wanted and how I could shape that career path. Given that at the time, I began to realize some of the frustrations that I had in the workplace, of being paid for time instead of being paid for results or outcomes, and really struggling with trying to figure out how, as my husband and I considered starting a family one day, how all that was going to shape out. And so, an interest in workplace flexibility and leadership and best places to work really interested me as well. I was very, 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 very fortunate. I cannot emphasize that enough. That when I approached my boss about the opportunity to go back to graduate school in industrial and organizational psychology, um, which I felt like welded these worlds that I was developing together, that he was flexible enough to say, yes, you can go back to grad school. Yes, you can still work part-time doing what we need you to do, and we'll see how that goes. So that was the first step for me in seeing how workplace flexibility could play out in my world, and how much satisfaction it led to for me personally by having been given that opportunity. Um, so during grad school, I did that and learned more and more, both in the classroom and outside of the classroom, in a consulting role with the school I was attending, and the mindset of the program that was very much practical based in projects that were for real clients about talent management, and how that could fit into modeling a business plan that tied talent management and career development together. So began working on that business plan. In the meantime, I was pregnant with our first child. I had my last exam on the 17th of December, and he was born the 20th of December. And ended up finishing my thesis about leadership emergence while he was an infant. And again, was so thankful for the flexibility that instructors provided me, and my practicum and thesis advisor gave me in doing a lot of that from home via webcam and discussions with a newborn in the background. So again, leading to so much satisfaction that I felt personally, from being able to pursue a career field that I was extremely passionate about, but being able to witness what I wanted to create in a business model was happening through me personally and those concepts. So um, through all of that personal story, there were some key realizations that I had that shaped the business. Um, First thing was that what started early in college was that so many people need help with career decisions, and that's an economic development imperative to help people with those, and it's all also a personal imperative to help people with those. Um, Too many people like me end up um, not knowing what they want to do, and I was fortunate that I had some direction to go to the career center that helped shaped me. Not falling haphazardly into what I ended up doing to make a living, which I think some people often do. Just had a real desire to help people with that, both to help at the personal level and to help at the organizational or community level. I also realized that I loved helping people make the most out of work, and oftentimes that is done through setting up organizations and leadership principles that foster and grow people in their work. On the negative side, I really realized that I don't like cumbersome work environments and that a lot of other people didn't either. Um, that being paid for time instead of for results was a real challenge facing our evolving workplace today. That different strokes for different strokes leads to better career fit. And I really wanted to help people determine how they could create a life that I was fortunate to be able to create for myself through in relationships that I had that allowed me to take those chances. Um, I also realized that workplace challenges are really employers' greatest challenges and therefore their community's greatest challenges. And so, helping people with career decisions, helping foster workplaces that are innovative in their people practices, and helping realize that flexibility, autonomy, is a key factor in what drives people. Later read that in Daniel Pink's book, aptly named Drive, about those things that people need and the research behind it, but really saw that through my professional experience and through my personal experience. So, based on all of these realizations coming together, I launched the company in 2011, and I really shouldn't say I launched the company. Should say we launched the company. Although I was the one doing the work, my husband was very instrumental in the success of that boss that allowed me the flexibility to go back to graduate school, and then while forming the business, work as a contractor instead of an employee. Really helped with that transition, and it was opportunity for us to get started on hopefully meeting a need that we identified in the marketplace. Um, with that being said, um, I think that from my story, it probably has a lot of common veins with other entrepreneurs' story, but it probably has some unique characteristics too. Uh, and so I wanted to provide some things and questions that might be helpful for aspiring entrepreneurs or current entrepreneurs that are still muddling their way through, as I am, and figuring out this entrepreneurship journey. So, the first thing that I think was very beneficial for me and that I ask people when they ask me about going out on their own is, can you stick your foot in the water before jumping in full force? I was fortunate to have the opportunity to do that because that employer turned client allowed me to do that in a way where I had a certain income source that we were comfortable with while I pursued other business opportunities. So, what can you do now to stick your foot in the water instead of jumping off the bridge to test that entrepreneurship strategy? And if you feel like you really need to jump full speed ahead, that's great. My personal experience may not be your own, but think about how you can do things now that allow that jump to not be so dramatic, um, with saving and planning in a way financially that allows that to be successful, and it gives you the time to not stress um, when things don't go exactly as you envisioned in your mind, because I can guarantee you they will not go exactly as you envision in your mind as you embark on going out on your own in an entrepreneurial venture. The second question I'd like to challenge you to think about is, how are you building relationships now that foster potential success for going out on your own in the future? I didn't realize it at the time, but because of my economic development work, I was building relationships with um, potential customers, and I was lucky that those relationships were there that made that transition easier. So, how are you meeting and networking and talking with and identifying needs in your target customer before you even do that? And if you are an entrepreneur, how are you setting aside time, um, weekly, daily, to foster those networks and relationships and the social capital that comes from that? This is going to help you better meet a market need and respond to it. And the next thing I would challenge you to think about is entrepreneurship right for you? What is your motivation for going out on your own? I will tell you that from my standpoint, the motivation was partly personal in I wanted the flexibility to foster the life for our family that I thought was important. I wanted flexibility, but given all that, I was comfortable with ambiguity, and comfortable with some of the risks that were associated with that. So, when we look at it from a not my personal perspective, but from a career development perspective, you need to think long and hard about what your work and life values are and how those correspond to certain work environments, and how your personal situation can set you up for success or failure in a venture, um, given what you want and need and given the support systems that are around you. And so that leads me to the fourth thing that I think you need to question yourself on, and I realize in hindsight has been so valuable in leading to success for us, is, do you have the support system to go on your own? I mentioned earlier that financial support or planning, whether you stick your foot in the water and have some full-time guaranteed work, or whether you have saved and are able to jump full speed ahead at one time into a venture. But thinking about the support from people is really important, and what makes that possible. I had the support from that former employer, but I had the support from my husband in just emotional support, but also the support from the fact that I was able to take more of a risk because he had a stable job in an industry that provided and has continued to provide good health benefits and those things that make the risk that I took a little bit less of a risk. So you need to weigh those things and figure out what support systems you have in place, to make sure that you can give it all you've got to be successful in entrepreneurship. If you've determined that that is the right fit for you and the motivation to do it is there for the right reasons. And the fifth thing, and is really the most important thing, is, are you doing something that meets a need? Are you actually meeting a business need by starting something? Because if you aren't meeting a need or fulfilling a want, you are not going to have clients and customers, and you're not going to have a sustainable business model. So, what need are you trying to meet? And how is that shaping your business direction? In thinking about that, and in thinking about entrepreneurship, I'd encourage you to pursue resources that are out there that can help you to be successful. We'll continue to have in the blog over the next couple of weeks some real life success stories from other entrepreneurs and some tips for doing things. If you're a business owner already, I know that I constantly have to think about how to adjust the business model and as I call it, pivot towards success. So I'd love to hear from any of you, whether you're starting a business or thinking about starting one, or well versed in the entrepreneurship ball game for years and years. What tips do you have for people? What questions would you challenge them to ask themselves? What questions are you asking yourselves currently to be able to set yourself up for success and actually at the end of the day meet a need that leads to entrepreneurial success? So thanks for humoring me in this first video blog that we've done today, and for hopefully enjoying the view as I am with the sounds of the Tennessee River. And we will hopefully see you back soon as we consider how to innovate in the workplace and how to drive successful workplaces through career and talent management. Have a good one.